If you don't stop, my life will remain like this. The car didn't stop because of traffic. It stopped because of her. A small black girl standing alone at the edge of the road. Not crying. Not scared. Not looking around for help. Just standing there. Like she had already decided this moment would change everything. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried in a way that didn't belong to a child, the kind of quiet that settles into your chest before you even realize you heard it. Min-jun didn't hear it like ordinary street noise. He heard it the way something unusual cuts through everything else, sharp, deliberate, impossible to ignore. And when his eyes finally lifted toward the roadside, what he saw didn't match the city around it. Because everyone else moved. But she didn't. Don't scroll, because what this girl is about to do in his life will change everything. Like, subscribe, and stay with Afro-Korean Story Vault. Stop the car, Min-jun said. The driver hesitated for only a second before pulling over smoothly, used to following instructions without asking questions. Min-jun stepped out, adjusting nothing, fixing nothing, because nothing about him ever looked out of place. His presence alone changed the space around him, even among strangers who didn't know his name but felt something about him that made them move differently. His eyes settled on her again. Up close, she looked even more out of place. About 9 years old, her dress simple but carefully kept, her hair neatly braided as if someone had taken their time with it that morning. She didn't look abandoned. She didn't look careless. She looked intentional. Her hands were clasped together, her lips moving softly, finishing what sounded like a prayer. Not desperate, but calm and steady, like she believed someone was already listening. Then she opened her eyes fully and looked straight at him. Not curious. Just aware. You almost didn't stop, she said. Min-jun studied her for a moment before replying. And yet, I did. She nodded slightly, like that confirmed something for her. I knew you would, she said. That answer sat there longer than it should have. Not because of what she said, but because of how she said it, without doubt, without hesitation, like she wasn't guessing. What are you doing here? He asked, his voice low, controlled, the kind that didn't invite unnecessary explanations. She lowered her hands slowly, her fingers still loosely interlocked as if she hadn't fully left her prayer yet. I left where I was, she said. Where was that? The orphanage. The word came out simple, but it carried weight. Min-jun's expression didn't change, but his attention sharpened. And you came to stand on the street? He asked. She shook her head gently. No. I came to find something better. That word again. Better. It didn't sound like a wish. It sounded like a decision she had already made. What kind of better? He asked. This time, she didn't answer immediately. She took a small breath, thinking carefully, not like a child searching for words, but like someone choosing the right ones. I want to go to a good school, she said. Not the kind where they just keep you busy. I want to learn real things. Her eyes stayed on his, steady and focused. I like computers, she continued. But the ones we had were broken most of the time. I want to understand how they work. I want to build things, programs, systems, something that matters. Min-jun didn't interrupt her. Because that wasn't normal. A child her age didn't speak like that, not with that clarity, not with that kind of direction. And you think standing here will give you that? He asked. She looked at him for a second, then gave a small, quiet shake of her head. No, she said. But choosing the right person will. That answer landed deeper than expected. Behind him, one of his men shifted slightly, clearly unsure why this conversation was continuing, but Min-jun didn't acknowledge it. His focus remained on her. You're not afraid of me, he said. It wasn't a question. She answered anyway. No. Why? She hesitated this time, but only for a second, as if deciding how honest she should be. Because you didn't ignore me, she said softly. People who don't care, don't stop. That struck something. Not visibly. But enough. Min Jun exhaled quietly, his gaze still fixed on her. And if I had kept driving, he asked. She shrugged slightly. Then I would have waited for the next answer, she said. Answer. Not a person. Answer. That choice of words stayed with him. He looked at her again, properly this time, not just seeing her, but observing, how she stood, how she spoke, how she didn't fidget or look around or shrink under his presence. She wasn't acting brave. She simply wasn't afraid. And that was more unsettling than fear. She took a small step closer, not invading his space, but closing the distance just enough to make her next words feel more personal. I don't want to struggle anymore, she said quietly. I don't want to grow up and disappear like nothing happened. Her voice didn't break. It stayed steady. I want a chance, she added. A pause. Then. I want to become something. For a brief moment, nothing moved. Not him. Not her. Not even the noise of the city felt as loud as it had before. Because those words didn't sound like a child dreaming. They sounded like someone who had already decided what they refused to become. Min Jun turned slightly toward his men. Open the door, he said. There was a flicker of hesitation, but it disappeared just as quickly as it came. The car door opened. He looked back at her. You'll come with me, he said. Not an offer. A decision. She didn't move immediately. Instead, she asked. If I come with you, will my life really change? Her voice was softer now, but not uncertain. Just, careful. Min Jun held her gaze. Yes. His focus remained on her. You're not afraid of me, he said. It wasn't a question. She answered anyway. No. Why? She hesitated this time, but only for a second, as if deciding how honest she should be. Because you didn't ignore me, she said softly. People who don't care, don't stop. That struck something. Not visibly. But enough. Min Jun exhaled quietly, his gaze still fixed on her. And if I had kept driving, he asked. She shrugged slightly. Then I would have waited for the next answer, she said. Answer. Not a person. Answer. That choice of words stayed with him. He looked at her again, properly this time, not just seeing her, but observing, how she stood, how she spoke, how she didn't fidget or look around or shrink under his presence. She wasn't acting brave. She simply wasn't afraid. And that was more unsettling than fear. She took a small step closer, not invading his space, but closing the distance just enough to make her next words feel more personal. I don't want to struggle anymore, she said quietly. I don't want to grow up and disappear like nothing happened. Her voice didn't break. It stayed steady. I want a chance, she added. A pause. Then. I want to become something. For a brief moment, nothing moved. Not him. Not her. Not even the noise of the city felt as loud as it had before. Because those words didn't sound like a child dreaming. They sounded like someone who had already decided what they refused to become. Min Jun turned slightly toward his men. Open the door, he said. There was a flicker of hesitation, but it disappeared just as quickly as it came. The car door opened. He looked back at her. You'll come with me, he said. Not an offer. A decision. She didn't move immediately. Instead, she asked. If I come with you, will my life really change? Her voice was softer now, but not uncertain. Just, careful. Min Jun held her gaze. Yes. His mind was already working through something he couldn't yet name. Beside him, the girl remained still. Not stiff. Not nervous. Just, settled. Like she had entered the car not as a stranger, but as someone who already understood where she was going, even if she had never been there before. The city lights moved across her face as they passed, soft reflections sliding over her eyes, but her attention wasn't outside anymore. It had changed. Quietly. Her fingers came together again, resting lightly in her lap, her lips moving under her breath, not loud enough to interrupt anything, but clear enough that it wasn't random. She was praying again. Min-jun noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything. But this wasn't something he understood. You pray a lot, he said finally, his voice calm, not questioning, just stating. She didn't stop. She finished first. Then lifted her head slightly. Yes, she said. Why? He asked. A simple question. But her answer carried more than expected. Because where I come from, she said softly, prayer is the only thing that stayed when everything else left. That shifted something. Min-jun's gaze moved slightly toward her now. I'm from Ghana, she added quietly. The orphanage said I should be grateful to survive, but I didn't want to just survive. A pause. I wanted to become something. Silence settled again. Not empty. Not light. Real. And you think prayer will do that? He asked. She shook her head gently. No, she said. Then looked at him. But it will lead me to where I'm supposed to be. A small pause. Then. That's how I found you. That line didn't sound dramatic. But it landed. Because she said it like it made sense. Before Min-jun could respond, his phone rang. Direct. He answered immediately. Yes. A voice spoke from the other end, low, aggressive, not respectful. We'd handled the Busan shipment, but your name came up again, the man said. Min-jun's expression didn't change. Then remove it. He replied calmly. It's not that simple. They're pushing back. A pause. Min-jun's voice dropped slightly. Then push harder. Silence on the other end. Then. Yes, sir. The call ended. Another came in almost immediately. Different tone. Different issue. Delay the meeting, Min-jun said this time. No mistakes tonight. He ended it again. And through all of it. She watched. Not scared. Not confused. Just, understanding. What kind of work do you do? She asked quietly. Min-jun glanced at her. Work that requires control, he said. She nodded slowly. Then said something that didn't fit her age again. Control doesn't mean safety. That made him look at her properly this time. She held his gaze. Calm. You control everything, she added softly. But people still try to hurt you. That wasn't a question. It was observation. What's your name? He asked. She answered without hesitation. Yvonne. The name settled easily. Like it belonged. The car turned into a quieter part of the city now, the noise fading, the movement slowing, the streets becoming wider, cleaner, more controlled. Eventually, the gates appeared. Tall. Black. They opened without question. The car drove in. Min-jun didn't look at her. But he knew she noticed everything. The security. The structure. The silence. The power. The car stopped. The door opened. Min-jun stepped out first. Then paused, just slightly. Because for the first time. He didn't know what came next. She stepped out on her own. No hesitation. No waiting. She stood beside him, her eyes moving slowly across the space, not in awe, not overwhelmed, just observing. "This is where you live?" she asked. "Yes." She nodded once. Then said quietly. "It's quiet." Min-jun looked at her. "Is that a problem?" She shook her head. "No," she said. "It just means people listen more, and hide more." That was sharper than before. Inside, the house adjusted to him. Then adjusted again. To her. A child. Beside him. That alone created tension. No one spoke. But everyone noticed. Later, when she stood near his desk, her eyes resting on the laptop, something shifted again. "You use this for work?" she asked. "Yes." "What kind of work?" He didn't answer. She didn't wait. "I can fix slow systems," she said. Calm. Min-jun's eyes narrowed slightly. "You can?" She nodded. "I used to watch through windows," she said softly. "People throw away things that still work, if you understand them." That line. Again. Too real. That night, when she stood behind him in the study, asking if people tried to hurt him. Everything slowed again. Because she wasn't asking like a child. She was asking like someone who had seen enough to recognize patterns. "Why would you ask that?" he said. She didn't look away. "Because fear is louder than respect," she replied. A pause. "And people who are afraid, don't protect you. They just obey." Silence. Heavy. Then she added. "I think that's going to be a problem." Min-jun's eyes locked onto hers. "A problem?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes." A small pause. Then. "Because if they're afraid of you." Her voice softened. "They won't tell you the truth." The words stayed in the air longer than they should have. Min-jun didn't answer immediately, but this time, it wasn't because he was thinking of what to say, it was because he was realizing something he hadn't expected. She was observing. And worse. She was right. Before he could respond, she stepped back slightly, like the conversation was already over in her mind, like she had said what needed to be said and didn't need validation for it. "I'll sleep now," she added softly. No hesitation. She turned and walked out of the room on her own. And for the first time, Min-jun didn't stop anyone. He let her go. Later that night, when everything was quiet, she sat by the window and opened the pouch again. She looked at the picture carefully, her small fingers resting on the man's face. "I'll find you," she whispered softly. Then she closed it again. Like it was something she had promised herself. By morning, the house had already adjusted to her presence. Not officially. No announcements. But people were watching. Quietly. Because children didn't walk into a place like this and remain calm. They reacted. They broke. They asked questions. But she moved like she had already accepted everything. She woke early. Earlier than anyone expected. Not wandering. Not confused. Focused. She found the garden on her own. Sat down quietly. And prayed. Again. One of the staff watched from a distance, unsure whether to interrupt or report it. They didn't. Because something about the way she sat there. Calm, still, grounded. Made interruption feel wrong. By midday, Min-jun called for someone. "Enroll her in school," he said. Simple. Direct. Top level, he added. No discussion. That decision alone changed her trajectory instantly. The school didn't expect her. Not really. They accepted her because of him. Not because of her. And that was their first mistake. Her first day was quiet. Too quiet. She sat in class, listening, her eyes moving between the teacher, the board, and the system around her. Not distracted. Not overwhelmed. Just processing. The teacher explained something. Basic. Step by step. Slow. The kind of explanation meant for children still learning how to follow. She raised her hand. Calm. Is there another way? She asked. The teacher paused. What do you mean? She stood up. Walked to the board. And without asking permission. She solved it differently. Faster. More efficient. Silence filled the room. Not confusion. Recognition. The teacher stared at the board. Then at her. Then back again. Because that was not something you teach. That was something you understand. By the end of the week, it was no longer quiet. Teachers started noticing. Then discussing. And every time, the result was the same. She wasn't catching up. She was ahead. But it didn't stop there. Because school wasn't where it became real. It happened at home. One evening, Min-jun walked into his study and found something wrong. Not obvious. But wrong. His system. Slight lag. Minimal. Almost unnoticeable. But he noticed. Of course he did. He sat down. Opened it. Then paused. Because something had already been adjusted. Without disruption. He didn't call anyone. He already knew. She was sitting in the corner. Reading. Not looking at him. I didn't break it, she said. He didn't react immediately. I fixed it, she added. Min-jun leaned back slightly, his gaze resting on her. You accessed my system, he asked. She nodded. Yes. No fear. Just the truth. How? He asked. She looked up at him. Then said something that made him go completely still. It wasn't protected properly. That was not something a child says. That was something a professional notices. He stood. Walked closer. Show me, he said. She didn't hesitate. She stood. Walked over. And in less than 2 minutes. She explained his system to him. Not randomly. Not guessing. But clearly. Accurate. She pointed out weaknesses. Hidden ones. The kind only someone experienced would see. Min-jun didn't interrupt. Didn't correct. Because he couldn't. She wasn't wrong. That was the moment it changed. Not slowly. From that day. He stopped seeing her as someone he took in. And started seeing her as someone he needed to understand. She didn't just learn. She improved things. Systems became faster. Safer. People noticed changes. But didn't know why. Only him. She prayed. Every morning. Every night. One evening, he asked her. Why do you still pray? She looked at him. Then answered simply. Because being smart doesn't mean I control everything. Then. And I don't want to become like that. That line stayed. Because it wasn't about intelligence. It was about direction. Time passed. Not rushed. And without anyone announcing it. She became something else entirely. Not a child being protected. Not someone surviving. But someone growing into exactly what she said she wanted. Years later. The meeting room fell silent. Not because Min-jun walked in. But because of who walked in beside him. Tall now. Confident. Sharp eyes. Calm presence. 14, maybe 15. And when she sat down, opened a system, and spoke. Every adult in the room listened. Not out of respect for him, but because of her. Min Jun stood there for a moment, watching something he didn't create, but had allowed. And in that moment, he realized the truth he had ignored for years. She was no longer the girl he brought in. She had become something the world would fight for. Or fear. And this time, the danger wasn't coming for him anymore. It was coming for her. And just like that, a decision made on a quiet street had already started changing two lives, one looking for a future, and one that never expected to care again. Sometimes, the people we think we are helping, end up changing us completely. If this story touched you even a little, don't just scroll away. Take 1 second. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to see this. Because this is just the beginning. In part 2, she grows. The bond becomes deeper. And a truth neither of them is ready for, begins to surface. You don't want to miss what happens next. Stay with Afro-Korean Story Vault.